It's my pleasure to introduce tonight's reader, Robert Fanning. Robert is the author of 5 full-length collections of poetry, Cage, Forthcoming, if it hasn't already come out. I wasn't sure about that.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Severance, Our Sudden Museum, American Prophet, and The Seed Thieves. He also has written 3 chapbooks. His poems have appeared in Poetry, Ploughshares, Shenandoah, Gulf Coast, the Atlanta Review, Waxwing, Thrush, Diode, the Cortland Review, The Common, and numerous other journals. He is a graduate of Sarah Lawrence and the University of Michigan and is a professor of creative writing at Central Michigan University. Robert Fanning is also the founder-facilitator of the Wellspring Literary Series in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. This is an annual reading series featuring Michigan writers of poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, as well as regional writers with Michigan ties. In the past, Robert was writer-in-residence and managing director at Inside Out Literary Arts Project in Detroit, where he witnessed the power of poetry to affect change in individuals and communities. Additionally, Robert founded and directs Pen/Insula Poetry, a resource for Michigan poets, and I understand that he is a member of a band. For more information, you can visit www.robertfanning.wordpress.com. In an interview in Poets Quarterly, Robert described his poetic inspirations as having sources, quote, just about anywhere. He went on to say that he's drawn to things that pique his interest and spark his emotions, quote, things with emotional complexity to them that suggest a maelstrom of feeling, unquote. The Crazy Wisdom Poetry Circle is grateful to Robert for sharing his work, his time, and his creativity with us tonight. Please welcome Robert Fanning.
Thank you. I guess I'm clapping for myself. I don't know. I'm clapping for all of you for being here on a mostly hot night, probably for all of us across the country. Thanks so much for being here. On a night you could be doing other things, and in a really volatile time in our country. And I love that we're all here to hear some poems, and I'm so happy to be able to read you some of my work. Thank you, Alyssa, for that beautiful introduction. It's interesting when people read things that you've apparently said in an interview. And it's like, wow, that sounded okay, that quote. So thank you for that. And it's so wonderful to see your smiling faces. And thanks also to Ed and Dave and everybody at the Crazy Wisdom Poetry Circle. Such a pleasure to read for you this evening. And I've been told to read for somewhere around 40 or 50 minutes. So I'll just try to keep my eye on my watch, but I'm going to read a range of work. One of the things I pride myself in as a poet, over the arc of my career, I've written very different styles of work. I never wanted to be the type of poet that's just writing the same way over and over again. So the arc of my writing career shows a lot of different twists and turns across my books. In fact, some I have started to call night books and some day books. The night books being sort of dreamy, more surreal, more experimental and weird, just real sharp left turns, and then the rest being sort of more typical autobiographical realism, more personal work. So you're going to hear a little bit of all of that tonight, but I'm going to be reading all new work. And I'm going to start with a couple poems out of a chapbook that is due to be published just in a couple weeks, which I just found out about this summer. They accepted it for publication. The book is called Prince of the Air, and it'll be published by Seven Kitchens Press out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So I know there's some Ohio folks here tonight, so thanks to you and your state for wanting my work. Anyway, Seven Kitchens does these really cool little chapbooks, handmade, small productions. So they'll be publishing this work. Prince of the Air, in this collection, Harry Houdini is a character and something of a metaphorical agent. in poems that investigate self-restraint and self-liberation. Almost every poem of the 20 in the book are in received forms: sonnets, villanelles, pantoums, sestinas, triolets, and that's to formally mimic Houdini's feats of bondage and escape. So I'm going to read two of those poems, and I'm going to start with one called Carousel. And this is, I believe, the opening poem in the collection, and I'll tell you about the form of it after I read it. Carousel. To know what's free, we pay to wend our way through dust. Want unreins our cells, unbridles fear. So let's away. We're bound to know what's free. We'd pay to end gravity's reign, to gallop over ground on painted horses. Let's unreal to know what's free. We pray to wind our ways through dust. Want unreins our cells, begins the bells of our unwinding song. Nothing's sadder than a carousel. So long we waved for a spell, so long began the bells. From our unwinding song we've leaned away a while. We whirl headlong, centrifugal. Who steers? Whose cavalier soul begins the bells of our unwinding song? Nothing's sadder than a carousel. So, thank you. That poem is a triolet, but it's actually a double triolet, and a triolet is a really challenging. It's my favorite poetry form. I think I love writing them. They're only 8 lines long, and if you write 2 lines, you've written most of the poem, because the first 2 lines are also the last 2 lines, and then there's one in the middle. And so I doubled it up, and there's 2 stanzas. So if you haven't written a triolet, that's your homework. Starting with that. The second and final poem I'm going to read from this new chapbook is called Strange Music, and this poem is in the form of a carol, which is a form I had never tried before, and it's again pretty complex in its rhyme scheme. It has a refrain. You'll hear 2 lines repeated, and the first couplet is followed by 2 stanzas with, again, pretty intense rhyme scheme. And this poem has an epigraph, a quote from Houdini. From the time I let go till the moment I strike the water, everything is blank, and my ears have filled with strange songs. Strange music. There's never been such a song as Stay. The world is always falling away. The river's ever-going tone is full of far, a draining, sea-drawn moan. Be near, the moon drones on and gone. A song such as this never stays. Even bridges sway, a song of gusts, aching rivet and beam, the cable breaking strain as I sleep. The leap is waking through. I'm a world always falling away. There's never been such a song as Stay in a world of always. Falling away is all I hear. The current rushes inside, a deep crescendo crush to fill the momentary hush. There's never been such a song as Stay. As I let go, strange music arose, the only song the body knows. Nothing holds, forever flows always, from a world of falling away. All right, so those 2 poems are in the new chapbook. There's only going to be 24 copies of that chapbook available for sale on the press. So if you want one, you'll have to jump up there. And I don't know when they're going to start being for sale, but anyway, I'm excited about that. I'm now going to read a few, maybe 2 poems from this new book that's supposed to come out in 2024, this year, what's left of it, on Salmon Press in Ireland. Salmon published my last 2 books. I have copies of those here. Our Sudden Museum and Severance. Both of those were on Salmon Press, and so this will be a third on Salmon Press. They're a little behind, I think, with COVID and everything in their queue of publications. So if it's not this year, hopefully it'll be soon after that. But I'm really hoping it'll be this year. So this is a really strange book. I talked about day books and night books. Well, this is definitely a night book. It's a really strange book. So I'm going to kind of read to you what I wrote about it, because it's hard for me to even talk about what it's about. Cage is a hybrid collection featuring poems and a few poems as plays. In this collection, a character named Man discovers a corpse, who we know, we the readers know as Corpse, who he names Cage, after the composer John Cage. In the first section of the book, Man learns to live with Corpse almost the way a child enjoys time with an imaginary friend. Later, Man leaves his house with Corpse to try living out in the world with him. In the final section, Man endeavors repeatedly to leave Corpse behind, though Corpse won't let him and keeps reappearing. Tonight, I'll read a couple poems from the middle section of the book as Man steps out into the world. And so you have to imagine this poor guy carrying this corpse everywhere he goes. And of course, the corpse, much like Houdini in this book, is very much a metaphorical vehicle. So I understand it sounds like a horror movie, a man dragging a corpse everywhere, but we have to think metaphorically here. So I'm going to read the first one, and this is one of the first ones where Man decides to leave his house with Corpse, and it's called Man in a Galaxy. Corpse snug around his neck, Man enters the lobby of his favorite diner. But still, Corpse's dangling legs swing out and bonk a glass bubble gum dispenser, toppling it over. God damn it, Cage, you dumb, dead fuck, Man hisses as a big bang rainbow spills across the tiles. Corpse crushing him like a lead scarf, Man imagines himself a child lost in this shattered universe. The gumballs a shiny clustered nebulae. What a beautiful deluge this moment might be. But an old sorrow wells up fast, a dark river rising, filling the rusty canal of his heart. As Man wobbles to his knees to clean his mess, Corpse's hand drags across this galaxy, his stiff fingers sweeping between each sweet planet, each glinting globe. All right, so that's Corpse going into a diner, and here he is in this next poem. Man and Corpse, Man goes out looking for love in the world, of course, with Corpse on his shoulders. And this is called Blind Date. Entering, Man squints across the dim restaurant, aching under Corpse, his hefty yoke. Seeing the woman who must be his date, Man manages a small wave. He's dressed Corpse for the occasion, matching tweed, baby blue bow tie, a spray of freesia for a boutonniere. Panting as he struggles into the booth, Man offers a faint smile, Corpse's zipper nipping at his neck. I hope I haven't kept you, Man says, trying subtly to let Corpse slide off into the space beside him. All his dates are doomed, Man knows. But just because you're carrying a corpse doesn't mean you can't have a little fun, his therapist had encouraged him. While his date chatters about her work in pharmaceuticals, Man feels a rush of vertigo, so hoists Corpse back onto his shoulders, balancing his head and feet to even the weight. When Corpse's shiny loafer conks his wine glass, Man lunges to break its fall. A half hour in, his date has Man and Corpse brutally confused. Man flaps his hands like moth wings in front of corpse's face, saying, "Woohoo, over here," to catch her eye. But by then, she sees through both of them. By then, she's already gone. All right, so that's two poems from Cage, and I mean every poem in that book is, or a lot of the poems are quite different. So I read kind of two that were similar, but as I said, some of them are like little one-act plays. It's a really, and then it's interspersed with quotes from John Cage at the bottom of the poem. So the book has a lot to do with silence and identity, and of course death, loss, lots of things. So anyway, I hope Sam and Poetry will get back to me about starting the process to get that book out into the world. All right, I'm going to turn now to the bulk of poems I'll be reading. And these are from a new manuscript that is I'm submitting it to publishers. It's out circulating in the great market of rejection in the world. It is in the hands of a Michigan press I very much admire, and I won't tell you which one, but I'm hoping that they're interested in it. Anyway, this work is very different, and you'll notice the difference. This work is, the book is called All We Are Given, We Cannot Hold. And so it's much more personal, a body of lyric poems about family, personal identity, love, and desire, culminating in a series of elegies for my mother, who died almost exactly 2 years ago today. So lots of poems about family, and so here we're away from the dream world of a man carrying a corpse now, and we're back into the autobiographical. This first poem is set in Michigan. This is really unusual for me late in my writing career to start to have poems that are sort of identifiable by place. I've always been a writer who, for some reason, I don't write Michigan poems, and there's a Michigan book in me. I hope I want to write, but anyway, this poem is about my family when we went combing for ancient rocks up north in northern Michigan, and it's called Inarticulata. And you'll notice here this I have a bit of an obsession or a thread in my work of the passing of time. And that's quite evident in this poem and several others in this book. Inarticulata. Squinting southward down the shore a blink ago, I watched my toddler wobble at the brink of a foot-deep hole in cratered sand, bright blue shovel in his tiny hands. An hour of castles and moats, and now he's waist-high, pensive, eyeing the passing boats, his baby sister in tow. I blink again, look west, and shield my eyes, my grown sons 100 pages deep in an old novel. My daughter, tall as my wife, sings as she cartwheels up the beach. At our feet, the shadows lengthen imperceptibly. Now it's autumn. We're combing stones along the coast at Headland's Dark Sky Park, sifting for 400-million-year-old fossils, etchings left by glaciers in retreat. We bend low as we look, as if to hear the ages speak, and they do. Here's a relic of a mollusk valve, crenellated inarticulata, little wing of something long flown. Here's one like a Zen eye looking up, an open enso pressed onto a pebble. Look at this one, a shadow of a curved spine floating for eons on a stone, a tiny cuticle of bone, ancient ultrasound of someone no one's ever known. They're gone when I turn to look, my family shrinking far down shore as they bend to shells and stones. Behind me already a sundown wind shivers the pines. I don't need to look to see the gone world here. The season of erasure nears. Soon the shore will be a slash of white, the lake a swath of black, inseparable from sky. Even now, the wind bears news of another world breaking into being beyond, of winter's towering, gale-thrown waves, shouldering massive sheets of jagged crystal, a stacked and aching wall of shattered cathedrals along the beach. May this then be prayer before the muted hour of ruin and ice, before the rise of the desolate era. May this be stone in your hand. May this speak of the depths of love, of how I held them all as close as I could and for as long, of how we played and breathed in every summer's golden going light, of how we stood together here where once there was a sea. All right, moving on. How are you all doing? Are we good? All right, we're good. I'll keep going. This poem is called Family Day, and it is set in the Great Kelsey Museum of Archaeology, and you've heard of that place in Ann Arbor on University of Michigan campus. And what inspired this poem was visiting campus with my oldest child a couple years ago when they were considering possibly attending U of M, and now their first year is already done. So anyway, this poem is called Family Day. Moving from era to era, we navigate cramped spaces between flocks of fussy toddlers, parents pushing strollers. Hoping only to duck into the museum for an hour on a college visit, we end up here on Family Day. One dad stares into the crumbled eyes of an emperor, half his face worn off. Upstairs, story hour. They've closed the book on Egypt. All the kids antsy and chanting, "More bones! We want to see more bones!" A lime green sippy cup slides across the waxed floor. Late day sun casts shadows on Roman tablets, red walls of reconstructed frescoes. A lifetime ago, I was a kid, bored out of my skull in a museum like this one, listening to my dad read to me from a plaque about some god or other. And what seems only minutes ago, you toddled beside me, awed by the cracked pottery, gleaming emeralds, bones people dug from some great sandbox somewhere. Soon you'll be majoring in anthropology. Across the room you marvel at fragments of a chariot wheel, an Etruscan spoon, clay baby rattles, a tiny urn. Seeing you framed between two marble torsos, I lift my phone to catch you, to make this moment yet another treasure behind glass. Lately, I swear I can taste it, mouthfuls of sand, this storm of time. I gasp at all of it in passing. And here, someone else's child looks up at me, pleading, "How did they stuff all that death in there?" She's pointing at an infant mummy, waiting for my answer. All right. So over the last 3 years or so, about 3 years, my wife and I have created something of a garden paradise of our formerly grass yard. We built, I haven't counted in a while, probably 15 raised garden beds. I'm looking out at the garden right now, and put a fence around it. Enormous amount of work, and I don't take any credit for the lush flowers in our garden. My wife does all the gardening, but anyway, I speak of that because this poem finds its place in the garden, and this poem is called Deadheading. Leaning across the bed, you squint into shadows, pinch a ragged bloom, show me where to snip above the joint. You need to cut the death away to make space, you say, tossing a bouquet of spent stems on a pile. Shears in hand, you eye the asters, zinnias, fever few. I follow, not always knowing if you're talking to me or the flowers. This is the summer we've transformed our yard into a spilled rainbow of gardens. This is the summer our niece, only days from now, will die by suicide, followed by my mother in hospice. But this morning you walk before me in dappled sun, lean into a splayed corona of wildflowers, snipping, pulling away. Holding a lopped white flag of daisies and yanked weeds, death heaped and strewn around us in mounds, you turn to find me, lost in some thicket of memory or worry, eyeing some darkness in me, in us. Now the energy can shift toward growth with room for new life to get through, you say, as you plunge your hand into my chest, clutching at a tough vine, choked and overgrown. Your turn, you say. No, you're only handing me the shears. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't even know what the term deadheading meant. Last I heard that was a rock band. But anyway, now I know better. I'm sort of a terrible garden apprentice. I follow her around, and but anyway, it's beautiful, at least the work. And speaking of my wife, she blessings to her, because she has suffered enormously having the husband she has, and how clumsy I am around the house. And so that's what is the main concern in this poem. The breakage that seems to follow me everywhere. And this poem is called The Mosaic Chair. From another room, you hear me drop a plate or mug or glass or bowl and wince, gasp, laugh. This daily shatter has become our soundtrack, and me, the grand composer of this symphony of crash and ruin. Who could love such a clumsy lunk, such a bumbling klutz clomping through the world, so dumb-fisted? I mean this literally. Who could love me? My periphery, black ice for miles, a train of wreckage all the way to the horizon, a river of glint and sliver. And the sky over me? Millions of new dishes tumbling forever in slow motion. A falling future. Answer? You. You who saves every fragment, every smashed piece. Who I watch this spring morning through our kitchen window as you smooth damp plaster onto the wooden seat of an old metal chair in the garden, setting each bright shard into a circle. Something broken you make whole as I lift another dish with wet hands. All right, so that one goes out to my wife, Denise, and and all she puts up with all the time. And she did. She made she turned it all into this beautiful chair. So it's nice to see some new faces. Hi, Joanna. And one of my former students, James, here too. And anyways, it's great to see you all here. I can't thank you enough for being here. I have a handful of more poems. As I was writing this manuscript, manuscripts themselves are sort of just like a bigger poem, frankly. I tell my students that all the time. I mean, you're looking at 80 or so pages of work or more of poems, and it changes as you're writing it. You're constantly, much like gardening, I suppose, pulling old poems, throwing new ones in there. I'm not going to lie, it's not a process I really enjoy. But as it starts to come together, you start to find little holes and places calling for certain themes in the work. And in this collection, again called All We Are Given, We Cannot Hold, late in the process, I realized there's spot here for some poems that are kind of almost more literally about love. Love is kind of a theme running through it, but I really was kind of becoming interested in just what love even is. Excuse me. So this poem is called The Great Vessels, and the epigraph is, after seeing a photo of heartstrings on the internet. So, and of course, seeing actual photo of heartstrings was quite shocking. So that's what the poem's dealing with. The Great Vessels. Just keep poetry out of it for one goddamn second. The matter is this. A heart's nothing more than some humdrum pump, a bloody knot of clockwork. Just ask the one who slips a silver scalpel into this mess to save us. No surgeon ever excised love. No harbored secrets ever spilled onto the cold steel gurney at the end. It's just an organ. And not the musical kind either. Not a drum, not a compass, not a fist thumping freedom, freedom from behind the bony bars. Not a lonely hunter. It's no lyre or harp. And the so-called heartstrings? We can blame some heart-sore 15th century sap for that. Here's what's true. The chordae tendineae do what they do. It's factual, anatomical, magnified by a gazillion. These creamy strands of sinew, hate to break it to you, just do their daily work. Anchor tendons, keep the canopy open for blood to flow. And the great vessels? That's just another name for aorta, pulmonary trunk, vena cava, superior and inferior. The veins, no, not rivers, just keeping blood moving. But no sooner do I say anchor, I begin to sink into the blue of my heart, tugboat saving me from grief. Can't say our blood to flow without wanting to say love is every seaward river. Can't see canopy without floating toward, oh heart, you blood-red parachute, you silky sky-wide savior. Silky. Like that parachute we spread across the 4th grade gym. No, not a parachute, a giant heart, and Julie beside me giggling, while we all tug, then lift it high, then run under it, swallowed by this rainbow jellyfish shot through with strands of yellow light. But you see, because you know how heartstrings work, when I said Julie beside me, you knew it meant I was crushing hard. That Julie was both the jellyfish falling over me and the weird ocean swelling inside me. Julie. Her bright laugh and enormous diaphanous dress. A floating down angel come to rescue me with, yes, the light in her sad eyes. Julie in her Snoopy t-shirt and pink rain boots. Julie, the best one in math. You knew as I began, even now, a lifetime later, to repeat her name, that something in me is still tangled in its fabric, unwound by even the memory of her voice, that those strands of yellow light, no, not sunbeams piercing caged gym windows, were love itself. Its search beams sweeping the sea for souls like us, all of us, the great vessels, all fray and thrum and ache and lost as we'll ever be. All right, so something of a love poem to love. But yeah, look up those heartstrings on the internet. It's funny. They're kind of gooey looking. All right. Speaking of love, This is sort of the summer of love at our house, I suppose. Not the one from the 60s. My daughter is 16 and madly in love with a boy who she seems to be with all the time. And, this is new for me as a parent. So it presents some emotional challenges, seeing your kid just falling head over heels for someone. And I think what I realize is just yet another cliff's edge as a parent that you're trying to keep them safe from. All right, so the poem here, the title spills into the first line, and it's called Watching My Daughter Walk Toward Love. Watching my daughter walk toward love, and suddenly she is 5 again. And here it comes, wave by wave, the whole ocean, a falling wall of dark water to swallow her as I dive to catch her small hand, though it's only a lake, remember? Each lapping wave, a soft lip, a gentle kiss at our feet. But you must know, I need to tell her now, she who is suddenly as tall as me loves a wild sea that won't show its true depth until the undertow crushes you breathless in its fist, its currents fierce enough to shuck any spirit from its shell. So with all the rivers in your blood, run, yes, no, tell her, don't, or yes, run, wide-armed, right into the storm of it. Look, you have no choice anyway. She's already waist high in its deep mouth, your voice muted by wind, by distance she needs from you. Have you forgotten, Father? Let the ocean remind you. Without you having drowned in the arms of such bliss, the thunder of such sweet foam and thrash, she wouldn't be here. Flesh of your flesh, this soul bright fish, leaping farther and farther now, and now gone under. All right. Thanks for the claps and the snaps. So glad we're all here together. I have 4 more poems, and the next 3 appear at the end of the manuscript I'm reading from. And they are all elegies for my mother, Mary Catherine Fanning, who I love dearly, who I lost 2 years ago. And so this poem is about a dream I had immediately after, or shortly after she died, and it's called The Carrying. A few days after you've died, I dream I carry you in a car seat into a restaurant. As the server takes my order, you coo beside me, entranced by your fingers, your strange new voice. Back in the waking world, I've decided to begin talking to you, sharing the mundane details of my days. It felt foreign at first, not knowing if the silence was translating me or if you're even listening. I close my eyes so you can hear me better. Down in my heart, in the quiet infancy of your death, I imagine you staring at each word falling from my lips, the way I did when I was your baby, watching them spill from your mouth, those tiny black seeds with poems curled up inside of them. My mother, thank you so much. My mother, it's because of my mother that I write. You know, she loved to write. She had a book inside of her, and sadly she died with that book inside of her. But it's because of her that I move my pen. You know, she was the first to make me fall in love with writing. My dad loved poetry and writing too, but my mom just really loved to write and really wanted to write a book, and she never did. And so in this poem, I take that as my subject. And the poem is called Life's Work. For decades you spoke of it, the book you'd soon begin to write. Mother of 8, Your first 6 all adopted. Each chapter would be about one of us. Doctors, waitresses, any strangers within earshot heard the synopsis over the years. The story shimmered from you, page after page, blank page, falling like gold leaves onto the surface of a glinting river, only never into ink. Every home you lived in had a writing nook, a corner desk with pens and sharpened pencils and a cup, framed covers of your favorite books on the wall, 2 wrapped reams stacked like bricks on the shelf. For years, I tried to spark you to start. We knew Oprah would snatch it up, knew anyone who'd hold it would be changed. A Little Book of Love was the last of many titles you tried out on me, only weeks before you died. Taking my hands, you'd lean in and say its name, and as if you could see your life's work appear, you'd read my eyes. Oh, that's a hard one. I really wish she would have been able to write that book. I have pieces and parts of things she wrote, but anyway, the poem is hopefully honoring that. The last elegy I'm going to read for my mother is called Last Masks. Running an errand, I scrounge in the glove box for a COVID mask. Putting it on, it hits me instantly. That sad pink of your foundation, your lipstick's fading red aroma. This must have been the mask you wore the last time we went shopping or to lunch or when I drove you to the hospital. Beneath the fabric of this poem, I want to say I shook with tears then, doubled over in a crowded parking lot. Because I did, even though I didn't, in the blur of rushing into the post office just before they closed. Standing in line, I shut my eyes, inhaling you, seeing my face pressed to yours like it was only hours before you died. Your gaunt cheeks drawn, your close breath mingling with mine in the dark, I began to tell you a secret. I want you to know all of me now, Mom, I said. Only air between us, yet how strange to hear it revealed, this universe of burn and hurt flickering up from the deep black sky of my life. And that was it. Your soul's last drift, the gauzy lift of your going, and my words flickering out, the way a veil of clouds reveals the momentary stars. All right. I have one more poem, and then I want to answer some of your questions. So this poem is the title poem of the manuscript, All We Are Given, We Cannot Hold. And I think in this poem, I'm just trying to pull all the energy of this book into one poem. It's about love. The phrase love between us popped into my head, and I just started riffing on that phrase. All we are given, we cannot hold. Whirling axis, spine of a spinning top. Love between us, all maybe and blush. Night we press against us, secret we caress, word we write in steam, we breathe on glass. What we let fly from our fingers, love between us. String we find to weave a world. Valleys of lavender spilling for miles. All the stars we can name. Lemon and willow, love between us. A riffle of yellow. Shadow of sheets on the line. Mast and sail, the days adrift, the summer all billow and cream. Endless, yes, love between us and passing. A drooping flush, pink bloom at noon. Love between us a dappled garden shade, gate of vines, a house of ours, and only we've the key. Love between us the day-long rain. Love between us glance and veil, the gauzy sleeve of evening giving way. Gray mare in the mist, acres of breeze and beach grass, love between us chasm and sea. Flicker or blaze, weather of our making. Wild heaven going, love between us. All the windfall apples and the sweet crush of dusk. Love between us, the unfleshed glow. Night, a book we want to open. Love between us, the story we writhe inside. Box of letters in a dusty attic. The sky's ancient fires we extinguish each day we don't kiss. Static and stir, a spark, love between us, the silver arc we make across the stark and vast. Given one life to remember, love between us, one lost language we're given to taste. Each fading sentence to erase love between us or to pass between our tongues. All right. That's it, y'all. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. Hit me with some questions if you'd like, and I'm happy to answer any.